Welcome back to another Rating and Correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 3 of The Technician's Fight. Jeremy paused at the archway opening onto engineering. He was happy to be back to work after the few days off his in his off in no off is part of the hunt had enforced on him. Hunters weren't allowed to just return from the line and get back to work as if nothing happened. They needed to live for a few days, enjoy having survived. He hadn't been one of them, but Gralgiran kept him busy, and Jeremy had enjoyed that. But now it's time for his shift, and to confront the engineer. He'd be more comfortable with that if Alexiana Karan had sought him out to let him know how he felt about what Jeremy had done, running off, abandoning his post. However he saw it, his friend's temper should have meant that the moment Jeremy was cleared by medical, he would have been there, letting him know in no uncertain term what the consequences would be. That he hadn't? He headed for the stairs to the office. The engineer was already there. Jeremy wasn't sure his friend respected the shifts. He announced himself. As often as he was in the office, he didn't take for granted he was welcome there. The light turned blue and he entered. Alexiana Karan continued working, claws clicking as they hit the bottom of the key well. The key wells. This reminded Jeremy too much of when he'd barged into the office and made demands of the engineer. He waited. Are you here for a reason, technician? The engineer asked without looking at him. He ground his teeth. He hadn't cursed Kelsirians and their need for ranks in a while now, but he silently did so. He wanted to talk to his friend, not the engineer. This would be easier without the forced distance between them. I'm sorry for running off. Are you? Damn it, Alex! He bit off the rest. So much for not making this a repeat of that first time. The engineer turned his seat to face him, his expression unreadable. That, in itself, told Jeremy something of the other man's mood. With their ears, Kelsirian tended to be expressive to any who knew how to interpret the angles and the twitches. Everything on the engineer's head was perfectly still. How angry did he have to be to feel he couldn't afford to express anything? You get that I did it so you and Grau wouldn't have to argue, right? So you wouldn't have to be pissed at him? Did you? He closed his eyes. Something needed to be done. The hunters were in danger, and you wouldn't go willingly. And once Growl forced you, you'd be angry at him, and I didn't want to see that. Friends shouldn't be angry at each other. You shouldn't be this angry at me. I see. Jimmy wanted to scream. What did the men want from him? Alex, please. Your shift has started. He didn't have a friend here at the moment. Yes, engineer. Something's going on with conduit in Delta 8. Resolve that? Yes, engineer. Leaving the office, Jeremy noticed someone at Turek Station, but didn't have the time to find out why. With the engineer in the mood he was, he couldn't afford to give him any reason to be angrier. He grabbed tools from the locker and headed to Delta 8. This training room was not in the usual gym. Jeremy was no longer learning to defend himself. He was going to be taught to fight the way hunters did. And by the way people in the training circles hit the mat, it was going to hurt. He was in the hunter section of the ship. Not his first time there, since Atarikna had her lab within it, but this was deeper. The leisure alleys had been loud with the sounds of revelry. He'd caught a couple going at it as he passed by. The woman against the wall passed by. That's going to be a phrase. The woman against the wall yelled in pleasure as she pressed the other woman's face against her groin. Oh, I see. That's why I went with in, because I already have against there. Hunters lived hard, he'd heard more than once, to make up for being called to the forest more than most, was the explanation. Sorry, be called to the forest before most. Jeremy had had a taste with how energetic the sex between him and Gralgiran had been, but he couldn't imagine being on that level all the time. It would burn him out. Or maybe that was how he'd avoid it, by burning that energy on his heart. You are early. His instructor greeted him on entering. Jeremy's response was cut short by who was with her. Thurrock looked at him impartially. This was the hunter Jeremy rarely saw in his friend. Hunter, she addressed Thurrock, your task is to subdue your opponent. Before Jeremy processed the instruction, he was on his back, head spinning from hitting the mat, and he groaned. As far as you could tell, it have been on hand. Wait, what? As far as you could tell, it had been a hand on his chest, and he'd been raised and lowered hard. He saw worry on Thurrock's face mask away as she crouched next to Jeremy. That wasn't impressive, his instructor said. It wasn't fair. Jeremy managed through the troubled breathing he still had. This is something I do a lot of. Flipping phrases around in ways that still work, but tend to be clunky, and that's because of my French heritage. Having learned French and English tend to flip a lot of phrases, the structure. So, and that often carries it to when I write English. That wasn't fair. Jeremy managed through still having trouble breathing. Welcome to the Hunters, Jeremy Bradshaw. Fair isn't something we do. You really think I'm going to learn anything if I'm always in pain? We have learned that pain is excellent in teaching young hunters to avoid feeling it. She stood. Hunter Thurrock Selminial. Your task is to instruct this cub into what it means to be a hunter. Yes, Beta. He looked at Jeremy as she stepped away. Stand. He pushed to his feet and forced a few deep breaths. The pain was subduing. Your instruction, cub, is to take me down using whichever method you feel is adequate. That was a joke. His friend knew him too well to allow this to last long enough for Jeremy's higher stamina to give him the advantage. He closed his hand and raised them. He'd still give it. You have claws, Thurrock stated. Jeremy looked at his fist. Yeah, but this is just training. I'm not. His chest hurt from the arm's impact more than the back of his head hitting the mat again. You are a hunter now, cub, Thurrock said in an even tone, crouched next to him. A hunter doesn't care for his enemy's feeling because his enemies won't care for his. A hunter doesn't care for rules because his enemy will not care for them. The only thing a hunter cares for is to take him on Garten for as long as they can. We are destined for the forest, but never shall we go willingly. Do you understand? Kick my enemy's ass as hard as fast as I can. Got it. Thurrock's smile was the first sign of warmth Jeremy saw on his face since his arrival. Good. Stand and take me down. It was still a joke. He pushed to his feet, but he wasn't going to back down. He opened his hand and tensed them. The glove responded, and he rushed at his friend. He slashed and winced from blocking the return punch. Even through the padding he now wore, he felt the force of the impact. Now that the training wasn't simply about learning how to fight, but actually landing and taking hits, they'd all realized Jeremy didn't have the same physical toughness the hunters had. So they'd given him a set of armored clothing, which hadn't done much as Jeremy's hoped for. He was sure they'd keep him from breaking anything, but the hits still hurt. Open hand, cub, Thurrock said. With a breath, he opened his hand and tensed it. He didn't run at his friend anymore. He He stepped around him, watched him, tried to see something that would hint at an opening. Thurrock's fur was matted with sweat, an indication he too was feeling this fight, even if Jeremy hadn't scored one solid hit at this point. His endurance let him push the exchange, but Thurrock's experience meant he always brought him down before it lasted long enough for exhaustion to make him careless. Jeremy attacked, dodged, blocked, and slashed, and was doubled on the floor in pain from the punch in his stomach. Thurrock crouched next to him. Cub, you. That is enough, the instructor said. Cub, do you need a medic? Jeremy uncurled, wincing at the pain, then shook his head. I'm good. That might have been an exaggeration. Hunter, what were your instructions? To teach the cub to be a hunter. Do you feel you did that? Do you feel that is what you did? Thurrock looked down at him, and worry appeared on his face. Jeremy tried for a comforting smile, but he was still in pain. I don't know, Beta. Good. You need to be able to tell if how you are instructing is effective. You need to learn how those under you respond to how you instruct them. Training is over. Is over for both of you. Hunter, see Beta Arimakal Korikina tomorrow for instructions on how to learn to read your student. Cub, tomorrow, here, same time. She turned and left. Jeremy groaned at the thought of more of this. The hot water over his sore back felt good. The water falling over him mostly rendered the others' voices indistinct. A hand touched his shoulder, then the fingers pressed, and he moaned. The other hand joined it in massaging the shoulder. I'm sorry for how hard I went at you. I didn't know you would be who I trained with when she told me that I didn't know you would be who I'd train. When she told me it was what I'd be doing. I got, by the end, that this was as much about you learning something as me. Part of you becoming a beta? Yes, there is much more to being a beta than I thought. I guess that's why you weren't in engineering today. And the last week, I don't know when I'll be back. Hopefully, once this training is done, you'll have more time. I'll probably have beta responsibility then. I might not be able to be on the same shift as you. Yeah, I'll change mine then. I'm glad that's not something I'll ever have to worry about. Thurrock chuckled, changing shoulder. What? You're going to be a good beta. Jeremy stuttered. And on what great well of knowledge are you pulling that prediction from? His friend remained silent. Thurrock? I know you, Jeremy. If you decide to become a beta, you will be good at it. I can't see myself ever going through all of this. Could you see yourself becoming a hunter? I'm not one. Yet. His friend leaned in and nuzzled the side of Jeremy's neck. This was not foreseen on my part. The gesture was uncomfortably intimate. Fortunately, Turek stepped back. Sorry, I shouldn't. It's okay, Jeremy said, pushing his discomfort aside. Kelsirians were physical. As much as it felt intimate to him, he'd seen plenty of friends rubbing muzzle or nuzzling to show they cared. He turned to face his friend and saw something in the expression that made him think it might have meant more. But please don't do it again. I'm with Gral, you know that. Turek nodded. Again, I'm sorry. How about you get under here and I wash your back? Turek switched places with him and Jeremy set the incident aside. Gralgiran nuzzled Jeremy's neck and he startled. He'd been lost in the ballad on the screen, the hero taking on Zenila Haran for the sake of her heart. Are you okay? He considered not saying anything. It wasn't like something had happened. Thurrock nuzzled me while we showered after training. He is your friend. I think he was hoping to shorten the names we used. When his heart remained silent, he added, You know I wouldn't do that to you, right? I know. Do you understand that him wanting to shorten the names doesn't mean he wants to take my place? He has a mate, too. You didn't see the way he looked at me. It was more than, let's be better friends. This was, I want something deeply serious with you. You think he's going to respect your refusal? Yes, he's too good of a friend to force the issue. Then there is nothing to worry about. Gralgiran nuzzled his neck again, and they returned to watching their hero try to outsmart the god of chance. Technician Jeremy Bradshaw, the engineer, called, and he was back in his office by the time Jeremy looked over his shoulder. Someone's going to have a fun time again. Preteros Sing-Sang. Are you involved with the engineer? Technician Nialas de Deriasil Tilmar asked, sounding surprised. No, he's torturing me. Pretty Rose, can I send you my board? Nothing's happening with it at the moment. His friend grinned. I can handle it while you handle the engineer. Does the engineer have sex with him? She asked, and Pretty Rose laughed while Jeremy ignored his burning ears at the idea. He stepped into the office. Engineer? Reports 1888 through 25. Compile and tell me your result. He stiffled aside, sat at the console, and set to work. And that concludes Chapter 3 of The Technician's Fight. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is up on Ream's Story as well as the previous book. And if you are looking to support me, to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.